It is difficult to imagine the landscape of Hollywood without Bruce Willis, because his presence was never simply that of a famous actor. It was something far deeper, almost elemental. For decades, he stood at the center of blockbuster cinema, not as a flawless superhero, but as a man audiences could recognize in themselves. He brought an entirely new kind of strength to the screen, a toughness that carried exhaustion, sarcasm, vulnerability, and emotional weight. Bruce Willis was never invincible, and that was exactly why he mattered. He didn't just play heroes who won, he played heroes who endured. From the late 1980s onward, he reshaped what action stardom looked like, grounding spectacle in humanity. His characters fought through fear, pain, and doubt, making courage feel real instead of unreachable. But while the world continued applauding the legend, something subtle was shifting quietly behind the scenes, changes that did not announce themselves loudly, but arrived slowly, altering the rhythm of his life long before anyone understood why. The quiet before the world noticed. Long before headlines emerged or official statements were released, there were small signs that something was changing in Bruce Willis's world. They were not dramatic, not scandalous, not the kind of thing that sparked gossip immediately. Instead, they appeared in the quiet spaces, film sets that grew more carefully structured, dialogue that became shorter, scenes adjusted with gentleness rather than disruption. These shifts were not treated as controversy, but as care. Those around him adapted instinctively, guided by respect more than explanation. There were no harsh confrontations, no public unraveling, only a quiet recalibration that suggested something deeper than fatigue was unfolding. In an industry that often values speed and perfection, the silence surrounding Bruce was not avoidance. It was protection. For years, he had given everything to his craft, and now the people closest to him were offering something back: patience, dignity, and time. Subtle changes that carried heavy meaning. At first, the signs were easy to rationalize. A missed cue here, a pause there. Moments where words seemed just beyond reach, like thoughts interrupted mid-flight. Directors began breaking dialogue into smaller pieces, allowing more space between takes. These accommodations were made quietly, without spectacle, because no one wanted concern to become intrusion. On set, the adjustments felt gentle, almost invisible. But at home, the shifts carried heavier emotional weight. Conversations sometimes stalled. Familiar stories were repeated. These were not moments of collapse, but moments of disruption. Small reminders that something was changing. For a family who had always known Bruce as sharp, quick-witted, and effortlessly present, these pauses felt deeply significant. Still, love does not begin with alarm. It begins with understanding, and that was the family's first instinct: closeness, not fear. A family responding with compassion. Within the privacy of their home, Bruce's family leaned in rather than pulling away. They listened more carefully. They slowed conversations. They learned to sit with silence rather than rushing to fill it. Emma Hemming Willis later reflected that there were moments when Bruce seemed to search for words he once held easily, hesitations that gently disrupted familiar rhythms. These moments were painful, but they were also intimate, drawing the family closer together. They did not correct him harshly or highlight the changes. Instead, they offered reassurance through tone, touch, and presence. Humor still surfaced, flickering like echoes of earlier days, and those moments became treasures rather than expectations. What mattered most was not what was slipping away, but what was still there: warmth, love, and the unmistakable essence of Bruce. Protecting dignity over public curiosity. Friends noticed changes too, though Bruce remained kind, welcoming, and filled with flashes of the charm that had always defined him. As patterns grew more noticeable, the family made a deliberate decision. They would protect his dignity above all else. They would not allow curiosity to override compassion, nor would they let rumor define his story. While quietly seeking answers, they resisted the pressure to explain anything publicly. Silence, during this time, was not avoidance. It was devotion. It was the space they needed to understand what was happening without exposing Bruce to unnecessary scrutiny. In a world where celebrities are often consumed by speculation, the family chose something rare: privacy rooted in love, not secrecy. When clarity finally came. When the diagnosis arrived, it brought heartbreak and understanding at the same time. Learning that Bruce Willis was living with frontotemporal dementia reframed years of subtle shifts, changes in language, decision-making, and emotional rhythm that once seemed disconnected for the family. This was not an ending, but a turning point. Doctors helped them understand what the condition meant and how it progressed. Knowledge did not erase the grief, but it gave shape to the uncertainty. For the first time, the confusion had a name. The past suddenly aligned in ways that were both comforting and devastating. Nothing had gone wrong. Nothing had been anyone's fault. Something had simply changed, and change, though painful, could still be met with love. Building a new rhythm of life. With clarity came intention. The family shifted their focus toward stability, creating routines that emphasized calm, familiarity, and safety. These changes were not dramatic or performative. They were quiet choices made with care, simplifying environments, softening schedules, allowing life to slow down. Loved ones learned to measure time differently, not by productivity or achievement, but by presence. Each day became less about what was lost and more about what could still be shared: music, laughter, touch, and the comfort of being together. In this new rhythm, connection was not erased. It was redefined, shaped not by expectation, but by acceptance. Redefining what connection means. Those closest to Bruce learned to embrace moments as they came, rather than expecting them to follow old patterns. Conversations were allowed to wander. Silence became acceptable. The focus shifted from fixing to simply being. One family member later reflected that the diagnosis did not close their story. It reshaped it. Every interaction became an act of compassion, every decision a reflection of love. The future was uncertain, but the commitment to face it together was unwavering. This was not a retreat from life, but a deeper entry into what life truly is: presence, patience, and shared humanity. Speaking with one unified voice. When the family eventually chose to speak publicly, they did so as one united circle. Emma Hemming Willis, Demi Moore, and Bruce's daughters released a joint statement rooted in honesty and care. Their words were measured and free of sensationalism. They did not seek sympathy. They sought understanding. Their openness was not impulsive, but deliberate, shaped by months of private processing. They understood the weight of sharing something so personal, but they also recognized the value of clarity. By addressing the truth directly, they replaced speculation with dignity. Their unity sent a powerful message. Whatever lay ahead, Bruce would not face it alone. Emma Hemming Willis, and advocacy through love. As time passed, Emma Hemming Willis naturally became the family's steady public voice, balancing advocacy with protection. She spoke with clarity about Bruce's condition while preserving the dignity he deserved. Her presence was calm, grounded, and deeply human. Through interviews and statements, she transformed fear into purpose. becoming an unexpected guide for families navigating similar challenges. She described understanding the diagnosis as both blessing and burden, relief in knowing, pain in accepting. Yet her openness brought visibility to frontotemporal dementia, a condition often misunderstood. Families around the world connected with her words, finding comfort in knowing they were not alone. Strength. Behind closed doors. At home, Emma's strength took quieter forms. She coordinated routines, medical guidance, and emotional support, creating an environment designed for calm. Yet, she never pretended caregiving was easy. She spoke honestly about leaning on others, acknowledging that strength does not mean doing everything alone. Her honesty reinforced an essential truth. Love is not measured by perfection, but by showing up again and again, even when the path is uncertain. A career seen through a new lens. Bruce Willis built his career portraying men who ran toward danger, but his diagnosis invited audiences to revisit his legacy through a more human lens. Fans began re-watching his films with renewed appreciation, noticing the vulnerability beneath the toughness. His characters were never invincible. They were resilient. That distinction became central to how his work was remembered. For years, he embodied the everyman hero, flawed, tired, stubborn, courageous, not because he was fearless, but because he kept going. Looking back, his performances revealed emotional persistence as much as physical bravery, authenticity as his greatest power. Bruce's true strength was never dominance. It was authenticity. His power came from being real, from showing that heroes can doubt, struggle, and still endure. In the context of his real-life journey, that authenticity feels even more profound. His legacy is not just action spectacle, but emotional truth. Courage is not invincibility. It is presence. A legacy defined by love. In the end, Bruce Willis's story is not defined solely by diagnosis, nor only by the roles that made him famous. It is defined by the people who chose to walk beside him as the world changed. His family. Honesty revealed something deeply human. Love adapts, strengthens, and expands in the face of uncertainty. Their voices reminded us that legacy is not measured only by box office success or applause, but by the courage to face difficult truths together and the grace to hold one another when clarity is hard to find. Bruce Willis will always be remembered as a cinematic icon, but perhaps even more enduring is the reminder his story